You have seen the giant glass tower stacked with cars. Drop in a coin and out comes your ride. No salesman. No haggling. It looks like the future. It might also be one of the strangest stories in America right now, because the company behind it, Carvana, is being sued by its own shareholders. It is under investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Some of its customers have been left driving cars they do not legally own. And the company is effectively controlled by a man the stock exchanges will not even let run a public company, because he is a convicted bank fraud felon. Oh, and a Wall Street investigator recently accused the whole thing of being, and I am quoting here, an accounting grift for the ages. So how did the coolest way to buy a car turn into this? And more importantly, what does it mean if you are the one buying the car? Here is the short version. You thought you were the customer. You were the product. Follow the money, and it does not stop at the car. It ends somewhere you would never guess. On the surface, Carvana could not look more harmless. It is a used car store with a gimmick. You shop online, you buy the car, and a giant vending machine drops it out like a can of soda. Modern. Clean. Genius even. And that is exactly what you are meant to see, because Carvana is not really a car company, not where the money is. Follow the cash, and the car is almost the side hustle. Here is what almost nobody realizes. When you buy a car from Carvana, you usually borrow the money from Carvana too. And that loan is worth more to them than the car ever was. By some analyst estimates, more than half of Carvana's profit does not come from selling you the car. It comes from the loan. The car is the bait. The loan is the catch. They arrange the financing on roughly 80% of the cars they sell. And then they do something very clever with it. Watch closely. Carvana writes your loan. Then it takes thousands of these loans, bundles them into one giant package, and sells that package to investors on Wall Street. A mystery box of debt. And here is the quiet part. Carvana can pocket its profit the moment it sells that box. Sometimes, before you have made a single payment. It gets paid up front, and the risk floats off to become somebody else's problem. So think about what Carvana actually wants, not to sell you a car, to sell your loan. The more loans it writes, the more boxes it has to sell, which gives it a reason to say yes to almost anyone. And hold on to that phrase, somebody else's problem. Because who Carvana was quietly handing some of these boxes to is exactly where this turns from a business into a scandal. We will get there. For now, follow the loan. Carvana has every reason to chase the buyers. Other lenders turn away. People with shaky credit and not a lot of options. Because those buyers pay the highest interest. And a high-interest loan is worth more inside the mystery box. So the person who can least afford it gets waved right in. Subprime car loans regularly carry interest north of 20%. Some push toward 30%. On numbers like that, a $15,000 car can quietly cost you well over $20,000 by the time you are done. You never feel the trap close. It just feels like a monthly payment. Former employees have described Carvana as one of the most aggressive lenders they had ever worked for. And for a while, this was a money-printing machine. During the pandemic, borrowing was dirt cheap, and used cars were suddenly worth a fortune. Buy the car, sell it high, write a fat loan on top, flip the loan. When the money is that easy, you stop asking who you are lending to. But the loan is only half of why people are furious. The other half is the car itself. So picture it. You buy the car. It shows up on a truck. You are thrilled. Then you wait for the one boring thing that makes it truly yours. The license plate. The real registration. And it never comes. Weeks pass. Then, months. You are driving around on a paper temporary tag that keeps expiring. You get pulled over for it. You call support and get nowhere. Legally, you are driving a car that is not properly yours, that you cannot register, that you are still paying for every single month. This happened to a lot of people. Some were stuck like this for the better part of a year. It got so bad that regulators in several states actually suspended Carvana's license to sell cars. Read that again. The car store got its own license pulled. That is why the customers are furious. And we are only getting warmed up. Because here is the trap you cannot see from the vending machine. The second you drive that car off, it starts losing value. Your loan does not. So, almost immediately, you owe more than the car is worth. That has a name. Being underwater. And it is a brutal hole to climb out of. Want to sell? You still owe. Want to trade up? You drag the old debt onto the new car. The ball and chain just gets heavier. And if you fall far enough behind, it ends the way it always ends. A tow truck, a repossession, the car is gone. And somehow, you can still owe money on it. You lose the car, and you keep the debt. And this is not just a Carvana problem. It is happening across the country right now, at a scale we have not seen in a generation. Americans are sitting on $1.68 trillion in car debt. That is the New York Federal Reserve's number. And people are drowning in it. The riskiest borrowers, the subprime ones, are falling behind the fastest. According to Fitch, the share of them seriously behind on payments hit a record in early 2026. The worst in about 32 years. Worse than the 2008 crash. The trap is not theoretical. It is closing on millions of people as you watch this. But the angry customers are only half the story. The other half is the one that pulled in Wall Street investigators and the SEC. And it comes down to a father, a son, and a felony. If you want to know who is really getting rich off all of this, subscribe. Because this is the part they would much rather you did not see. Let us rewind. A few years ago, Carvana was the golden child of the stock market. Its shares rocketed to around $337. Then the easy money ended, and Carvana fell off a cliff. The stock dropped under $5, a 98% collapse. The company was staring straight at bankruptcy. And then it did something almost nobody saw coming. It came roaring back. In a single year, the stock climbed almost 300%. One of the wildest comebacks Wall Street has ever seen. Which is exactly when a short seller decided to look under the hood. And what they say they found is where you genuinely cannot make this up. Meet the two men at the heart of it. The chief executive, Ernest Garcia III, and his father, Ernest Garcia II, the company's biggest shareholder. Now, the father is not allowed to run a public company. Why not? Because back in the 1990s, he pleaded guilty to bank fraud. That is not an accusation. That one is on the record. So, according to the shareholder lawsuits, they built the company around that little problem. The son runs it on paper. But the father was set up to control more than 80% of the voting power. The dad is not on the front of the company, but the buttons are his. Still with me? Good, because it gets stranger. Remember that mystery box of loans and the promise that all the risk floats off to somebody else? Well, a Wall Street investigator called Hindenburg Research says some of that risk did not float very far at all. In a report titled, and I promise I am not making this up, a father and son accounting grift for the ages, they allege that Carvana was quietly selling loans and cars to another company tied to the family, a company called DriveTime. Also, according to the reporting, run by that very same Felon father. So the accusation is simple. The family sells to a company the family also controls, and books the profit as if it came from strangers. One former insider reportedly said, DriveTime was just the thing they did not talk about. I want to be crystal clear. These are allegations. But there is more. The shareholder lawsuits accuse Carvana of hiding how little it actually made on each car. They say it left costs out of the numbers it showed investors, and buried other figures that would have given the game away. Carvana tried twice to get these suits thrown out, in 2024 and again in 2025. Both times, the judge said no, and here is the detail that ties a bow on the whole thing. While the stock was riding high, the two Garcias sold around $3.6 billion of Carvana stock. When it recovered a second time, the father sold another $1.4 billion. Critics have a short, blunt phrase for that pattern: pump and dump. In June of 2025, the SEC stopped watching from the sidelines and issued a formal subpoena demanding documents. Now, Carvana denies all of it. Every word. It called the short seller's report intentionally misleading and inaccurate. It says these same claims have been recycled by short sellers for years, and its finance chief insists there is no ambiguity in the company's accounting. So, is it a genius comeback, or a house of cards held together with cardboard? Honestly, it belongs in a movie like The Big Short. But which movie it turns out to be is for the courts and the regulators to decide. Not me. What I can tell you is what all of this means for your money. Because you did not click on this to watch a billionaire family fight the SEC. You clicked because you might actually have to buy a car. So, 4 quick things. 1. The loan is the real product, so never let them arrange it for you blind. Get your own financing from a bank or credit union first. Then make the dealer beat it. Walk in already knowing your number. 2. Watch the interest rate, not the monthly payment. A small payment stretched over 7 years is exactly how a $15,000 car quietly becomes a $20,000 one. The payment is the bait. The total is the truth. 3. If you already owe more than the car is worth, do not roll that debt into your next one. That is how the ball and chain follows you from car to car for a decade. And 4. The Carvana Special. Whoever you buy from, online or not, get the car inspected by your own mechanic before any money moves. And make sure the title actually lands in your hands. A car you cannot register is not a bargain. It is a problem with a nice paint job. Because that is the real trick here. The vending machine was never the product. Neither was the car. You were. Your loan, your interest, your debt, bundled up and sold off while you drove away smiling. Now, at least, you can see the chain before you sign. So tell me down in the comments, after all of that, would you ever buy a car from a giant vending machine? Or is it a hard no? I actually read them. And if this made you side-eye every deal that looks too good to be true, good. Because Carvana is not the only company that makes its real money on your debt instead of on the product. Subscribe, and I will keep following the money into the places that are counting on you not to look. Too good to be true. Now you know why.